This video is about how to build a commune. I want to go over a number of topics. One of them is viability. I'm going to define a false commune as one that's inviolable during the long run. Subterranean ratios, siege and invasion procedures, and then different designs you're going to want to have. So, in a false commune, there's no clear distinctions between social and formal law. That tells me that you're not part of a federation. So, in a community, there's only one kind of law. In a community, in a family. A community is just a large family. And the smallest indivisible social unit is the family. So, in a community, there's no formal law. There's only social law. And any kind of formal law will be actually intermingled into the social law. Another thing is guest policy is predicated upon loose entry thresholds, i.e., so there's no locks on internal units. This is the kind of like lovey-dovey, you know, we're all, you know, we love each other, so we don't need to, we all sleep together and shit, and that's great, but you need internal units and you need like locks on that shit, otherwise the individual has no retreat. So I'm going to give you an example of why that's going to break down in the long run. So, say you have a guy, he's friends with just about everybody, and he doesn't like you, and you know that, so he comes into your room or whatever, he knocks, he comes in, just says, hey, what's up, you're working, and he knows you're working, that's why he's coming to see you. And you know that every word that comes out of his mouth is going to be 100% anti-sociality, right? So, in order to respond to that, and you say go, and he leaves, that's no problem, right? But in order to respond to that, you need to activate antisocial portions of your brain. You're in this like high grind state, but now you're in this like weird state, and depending on how your brain works, you probably have blocks between now. So now you need to restart whatever you were just doing. So he leaves, that's no problem. Maybe like 3 days later comes back, does the same thing, reduces the duration between visits, and then now you can't work. Now he's sending other people to come and say hi because he's friends. He's, oh, could you go check up on so-and-so or ask so-and-so if he wants to do this, right? So, then you have to leave, right? So, just put locks on doors and there's no problem. The problem that locks bring up is you need to initiate communication protocols, nonverbal communication protocols. For humans, there's only 2 communication levels that I know of, and in each communication level, there's only ever 2 actual signals. So at the individual level, we're going to say it's like, you know, a casual, like let's just knock, hey, let's do something. There's no rush. So you can ignore that, right? And he'll just leave. But then there's the emergency knock, and then, and if you do the like it's like, so the emergency knock is like somebody's hurt, there's an emotional problem down the street or something, just come out and let's deal with this. But that completely raises the threshold of how much effort this dick has to actually put into it. So now he's actually working and it's less antisocial. The next level is the social level, the family level. So that's the community in this case. So there's only ever 2 communication protocols. Any system with more than 2 communication protocols built in is not intuitive. It will fail. So the first one is going to be like a gathering call. So it's going to be a pleasant chime or something that, you know, and then you gather in one location, and if there's another gathering location, another gathering spot you're going to go to at this time, you leave a sign in the gathering location. No problem, right? It's just, you just need one signal. And then the second one is going to be emergency, right? It's going to hurt your ears, and it's going to say, hey, get the fuck up, grab your weapons, go outside, or we're all going to die, right? So that's the emergency protocol. That's the emergency signal. It's going to be unpleasant to the ears. And the reason why you make these intuitive is because you don't tell anybody, except the only people that know what these things mean is the people who created them, right? This is a community of founders. So the next thing here is you don't tell anybody who comes in. So if you have like a refugee who comes in, starts living with you guys, then he asks, oh, what's the communication protocol? What do we do when there's an emergency? You don't tell him, and you just say, hey, you know what? You'll know what it is when the time. It's very intuitive, and you just reassure him, and he'll go. And if he comes back, then there's a problem. He's either a violent person, he's either really anxious, or he doesn't like to live there, right? So there's some problem with that situation. So then you have to deal with that. So it's just intuitive, and right. So just reassure them, and otherwise there's a problem. Next thing I'm going to talk about is subterranean ratios. So you're going to want to have most of your shit built underground. It's just harder to get at. You're going to want to have several exits, like a main entrance to your underground. So it's like a parking lot, and the main entrance it's going to be large enough to sustain several vehicles or just like large crowds of people, and you're only going to use that during peacetime. Your neighbors' sentries are going to know about that location. That's not a problem. You're only going to need one, right? Because it's just, daisies are good. Just peacetime, only use not that time. Next is your secondaries. So those are pre-built tunnels that are connected to the outside, and the exits are camouflaged. You only use those, and you have at least two. You only use those once. Once you use it, you burn it. Like, you never use it again. During wartime. So you have two, right? So and then you have an ancillary exit, which is a secondary to a secondary. I'll get to that in a second. But the secondary exits, use those to go to your sister city, ditch and never come back, or to rout the actual enemy who's ever attacking you. So your ancillary exit, that's just going to be a door to a dirt cavern. And that's very key, okay? During a siege, there's a lot of historical precedents. Your bitches, your people who don't work physically with the earth, or don't have tools, they don't build stuff, they're going to be scared. They're going to get frantic, and if they don't have anything to do, they're going to get more frantic, hysteric. And if you don't give them anything to do, they're going to associate intuitively with the enemy. So the easy solution here is, one, just give them a shovel, and then they can dig their way out, and problems solve themselves after that. Dig, horizontal, like a slight angle, just dig up. You can dig straight up if you want. It's more difficult, but people will die. But try digging on an angle. That's the best thing. And then once you get to the top, even sometimes they might even leave. They might just run away. They might just fucking leave, ditch, and die in the forest. But at least they won't go to the enemy, right? If they run away, then they were already, gone. So, but don't lock them up, because that's going to make them more hysteric, and they will die inside, because they went from a cage. The community became a cage during the siege, and then you put them in a smaller cage. That kills humans. There will be an animal inside that cage that knows how to deal with humans, and when it gets out, it will kill people. So just give them a shovel, and they'll dig their way out. So the next thing is nomadic alternatives. You're going to want to have, vehicle facilities. You're going to want to be able to drive all your stuff on road, just leave, pick up your whole community without reducing your infrastructure levels at all. So you're going to have terrestrial, aerial, and then aquatic. I'm not going to touch the last two because I don't know about planes and boats. But in terms of terrestrial, you're going to have 4 types of vehicles. You're going to have a 2-wheel, and that's going to be something like a kinetic powered, an electric, or a petroleum. Second type is going to be low to the ground, 4 wheels, very fast and stable. So a sedan is fine, that's great. Third type is going to be a pickup truck and a van, a cargo van. That's your familial cargo haul type. The fourth is going to be your heavy type. So that's long haul trucks, RVs, buses, and armored APCs. That covers everything up to these are all the vehicles you would ever need. You're going to want planes, obviously, and probably boats if you're near water, but in terms of terrestrial vehicles, that's all you ever need. You don't need tanks. Nobody needs tanks. The only reason you want a tank is to start a ground war, and nobody wants a ground war. You do not need tanks. Tanks are for destroying infrastructure, and you don't want to do that. There's no point in that. Nobody wants a ground war. Just don't buy tanks. You can make tanks easily, but don't. You don't need tanks. Okay, the next thing is you're going to want several designs. So you're going to want, and I'm going to post some 3D designs and whatnot online, the stuff that I have, but you're going to want a suburban design. The one that I use is it's just basically a circular brick wall. So looks kind of like an egg. It's just, you don't even need an entrance. Put whatever house you want in there. It doesn't matter. It just needs to be safe enough that like an animal can't come in. Like there's nobody with a club is just gonna come and kill you during the night. That's all it needs to be. And you just string those together into a field like a suburb, and put them, space them good enough apart, and people have a small garden. It's just enough so that people feel secure for like a week, right? But like people will live there. Like that's fine. Like it's just like you can just retreat to that, right? The next one is a fortress, and you put your refugees in the suburbs in that design house, right? And that does two things, right? It keeps them away from your infrastructure, your key infrastructure, and it acts as a social defense mechanism, right? So if people are coming through here, they're gonna deal with them first. So it's a dual function, and everybody wins. So a fortress, that's your next design, and that's where you put rich people, right? So if there's a lot of uses for that, right? If some faction comes in, they're not huge, but they say, they want taxes, right? They want to tax you because you're close to them. Maybe they're a bit bigger than you or something. So they waltz in, they say, hey, you owe us taxes, you owe us protection tax. And you don't just say flat out no, because then they'll come back with guns, or they'll be mad and they'll come back with two parties or something. Or somebody who does pay them taxes. So you offer them to buy a fortress, a place in your territory, and they'll be fucking daisy sweet. They'll probably love you. Or even better, you offer to build one with them. That's the ultimate there, and you'll have like an alliance. It's kind of. The next one, you're gonna want to have a community design. I'm not gonna go into community design. I'm gonna post some designs that I have, but community design is very complex. Signs, like you're gonna need ways to eliminate people that do not want to exist. Like that is a big thing. In small communities like this, it's like you're going to need to do a lot of complex things, and it's beyond the scope of this video. But you're gonna want at least 2 community designs. Just redundancy's right, and if you don't have that, if you don't own 2 communities, you're going to want to make it a direct alliance with a sister city. So the next thing there is how to make that alliance is you have an exchange program, right? Where so that a portion of your population has lived in their place multiple times, and vice versa. Every portion, like the whole population, has lived in each one at both times. Okay, so another thing is equipment. So you're going to want industrial equipment to build everything up to the 1960s. That's all technology up to the 1960s. You have to have all that. So you don't need like biological laboratories. You don't need chemical laboratories. I mean, the only way you want to fuck with that is if you have at least 4 communities. Like direct control or direct like physical social alliance over 4 communities, because it's a lot of hassle. I mean, you can build that shit, but if you're actively fucking with that shit, people will know, and it's fine. Like they're not gonna come kill you, but larger federations like to keep eyes. Like they like to. I mean, if you have professionals, they'll probably buy them from you. Educational facilities, right? So you're going to want 3 different types of educational facilities. Your standard should be something that you fit in a truck, so you can grab a bus and a truck, and everybody goes to like a forest or something they've never been to. Amazing, wonderful. Everybody comes back happy and just cheery. They learned something. The next one is going to be inside. It's going to have a lot of windows. You only use it on rainy days, and every time class starts, all the doors lock. So you use that on rainy days. That's your secondary, and when somebody has a gun outside, right? So you keep teaching. Another reason for having your main in the truck fit into a truck is because, again, you can use that on rainy days, right? Like you can put up tarps and shit, and people are content on a rainy day. But during if you have to leave, it gives people a stability sense, right? So it's like we're still teaching in the same way that we've always done, even though people with guns came, right? So we're still, it's the intuitive thing of we're top dog, right? The next one is going to be underground. That's going to be for your advanced studies, and just like when you're actually under siege, because your secondary is not for under siege. That's just you know. So the next thing is you're going to want to have all your legal social policies all worked out ahead of time. If you come in and you're unprepared and not everybody is like completely kosher with the policies, you're going to have a lot of problems. So the first thing you do once everybody gets in there, you don't even get settled, you just go into a fucking boardroom and everybody works out the problems. What issues you have, what's the policy, everybody works that out. Doors are locked, nobody leaves until you have everything solved. You have a respite maybe, but the respite room is locked, right? So it's just like, it's just straight policy, right? So people can sleep or whatever in the respite room, but just, you need to get that stuff worked out, or else people will bring patterns that they didn't want to bring themselves, and they won't even know it. So as long as by the end of the boardroom meeting, people have at least agreed to the policies, even if they don't agree, like they just want to get the fuck out of there, right? So a couple people just they just want to ditch. You can berate them later, right? Otherwise, if there's problems and you didn't agree to it, they're going to bring in external parties, or they're just going to leave, and that's where communes get messy, right? So humans are stubborn animals. I've almost covered everything here, but humans are stubborn animals, right? We have the faculty to temporarily alter the laws of nature. I mean, we can probably alter gravity right now, right? So it's like, well, we can, right? We go to space. So the thing is, though, we can just, like the 1960s ideas, we can alter it up to the familial level. So that's what you want to strive for, right? You don't want to fuck with gravity, but you know, the primordial human setting is the fucking, I'm not gonna say savannah, but you know, you go to get water, right? You know, it's hard, like it's not free. Now you can get people to feed you, pay them ahead of time for no energy expenditure at all, right? It's ridiculous. So we don't live in the same nature that we grew up in. Different laws apply. Humans can alter the laws of nature temporarily. That's about it. In order to cover everything right, you want to be able to fuck with lasers. You want to be able to fuck with advanced technology, right? At least, if not build it, you want to be able to fuck with it. Lasers with advanced software technology will be able to deal with just about any threat, aside from bigger lasers. But, yeah. So, just don't buy that first, though. Like, once you have everything set up, just start fucking with lasers. That's about it. All I have to say is, you don't have to be the best, just be better than your opponent, and, yeah.